Hello and welcome to Huddersfield Town's pre-match show in association with Absolute Warehouse Services. Football is back, and as we look ahead to this weekend's game against Wigan Athletic, I'm delighted to be joined by Stephen Chicken from the Huddersfield Examiner and Tommy Elphick. How are you both?
Very well, thanks Adam. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. You all right, Tommy?
Yeah, all good, thank you, mate. Very well.
Excellent. So I thought we'd start off with something a little bit light and something you'll know in particular, Tommy, obviously being back at Canal Side with the lads. Haircuts. There's some shock, isn't there?
Yeah, I'm not sure how a few lads have kept up to date with certain colours. Obviously not mentioning no names, but Janino Bacuna. He must have been in lockdown. His girlfriend must be a hairdresser. But yeah, there's some pretty wild ones. So I think a few fans will have a few shocks on that front.
Yeah, Fraser's is particularly interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, he's embraced it, to be fair. Fair play to him. Steve Mooney's another one. Usually quite trim, but yeah, it's a bit on the wild side at the moment.
And Steve, you've had a big drastic change, haven't you? What's brought that on?
Yeah, you either have to go really long or really short, and I had it long about a year or so ago, and I've not had it shaved since I was about 20, so I thought I'll give it a go. I quite like it, so I might keep it for a little while.
Fantastic. And obviously, Tommy, being back at Canal Side, obviously everyone's delighted that football's back, but what's the mood been like?
Yeah, been really good. I think understandably there was a few nerves and a bit of apprehension about coming back from a health point of view. But then I think once the lads got back to Canal Side and saw the protocols and the guidelines that were in place, it's certainly a step in the right direction. And just from a personal experience and how it's gone for me, I can't talk highly enough of the medical staff and even the owners from what they've put in place for us to make us feel safe and settle the nerves on that front. So it's certainly been good to be back. Some great work's been done on the training pitch, which I've seen firsthand. So excited to see some action now.
Yeah, and there's been drastic changes, like you said, coming in your kit, only being able to go in certain areas of the training ground at the start as well. Obviously, there was no contact. The club's had to do a lot of work to prepare for the return of the season.
Huge work, even just getting a sort of one-way system around the training ground. When you're testing, when the club have put a sort of marquee up outdoors that we're now using for our pre-activation and meetings and whatnot. So they've left no stone unturned. They've thought about everything. It's almost been a little bit of a throwback to when I first started playing. You have to wash your own kit and make your own lunches. So it's been quite nice actually, because on some fronts, I feel as footballers we've been pampered to a little bit too much in recent times. So it's gone a little bit old school, and I've actually quite enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And you've been back on the grass as well. Must be a big boost for you as you return from injury.
Yeah, I was itching to get back to the training ground. So before I was really lucky at home to have space and a little bit of a gym to be working in. So I haven't really lost no time on the injury. Again, I've said how well the physio's been doing with me and keeping my programme interesting and keep refreshing it for me. We've been in contact every day during lockdown, and it just got to the point where I needed to get back because I was on that sort of next stage of my rehab. So touch wood, all is going well. Just a bit of light at the end of the tunnel now. I'm feeling good and strong. So hopefully not too long now.
Yeah, it's fantastic to hear. And Steve, obviously we had that long period where the lads were working from home. Then they went back to Canal Side. Obviously we've been here around 3 weeks now. How do you think that period will help us? Because obviously the Cowleys didn't get a pre-season. They came in halfway through. Do you think it'll have a big effect?
I mean, obviously it's the same for every club. Everyone's had the same break, but I think Town, it's something we've talked about before on the website, I think Mark Hudson and Danny Cowley alike have both acknowledged that perhaps some of the fitness work in pre-season, what it should have been, but now having had that pre-season to help get that fitness up, that could stand Town in good stead more than other clubs in the division. And I mean, Danny Cowley talked about it in his press conference as well. As you say, just the fact that he didn't have the pre-season with the players to get his own ideas across tactically and technically, and you know, from other players that I've spoken to, I know it's very difficult once the season's begun to get that work done, because you, particularly in the Championship where you've got such a heavy schedule of games, it's really difficult, I believe, to find time, you know, on the training pitch to get those things done, because you've got so many recovery days and, you know, people picking up injuries and, you know, things like that. It's so, yeah, I mean, as I say, every club has sort of had this opportunity, but I think there are specific things that Huddersfield would have benefited from.
I think you could notice that the style, particularly before the break, was coming across more and more as games went by. So with this period, you'd hope that it would be even more evident.
Yeah, you would hope so. I mean, Danny Cowley said literally after his first game against Sheffield Wednesday, we would like to play 4-2-3-1, but he wasn't able to do it because Alex Pritchard wasn't available. And we've seen the massive influence that Emil Smith-Rowe has had, not just himself, you know, playing well, but also just what he's enabled other players around him to do. And I think that the last two home games in particular, the performances against Bristol and Charlton were two of the best performances Town have had for potentially years, I think. So it's starting to come together. I think everyone admit it's not the finished product yet, but I think it's only been 10 games that Danny Cowley's been able to play that sort of favoured formation. So hopefully that extra work on the training pitch, as you say, will enable them to push on in the last nine games here.
And Tommy, like you said, you've seen it firsthand down at Canal Side. Danny Cowley was talking about having a real aggression in training, working the lads hard. Just how hard have they been working? Because the fixtures coming up, obviously 9 games in 32 days, and I think 7 games in 21 days. Hell of a turnaround for the bodies.
Yeah, hell of a turnaround. Something I've never really experienced as a player either. So I think it's going to be new to everyone, and it's certainly going to be important, the whole squad. But the lads have certainly been working hard. I think you're going to see a much fitter team that can carry out the manager's instructions for longer period of the game. I think Steve touched on it there. You know, it has been documented that we didn't have a great pre-season. Not only the manager but Huddy was sort of a little bit surprised maybe how fit we were. So I think you're going to see a lot fitter Town team, and I think you're going to see a massive improvement with certain individuals as well. With, you know, you take into account the likes of Danny Simpson, Fraser Campbell, who have played a majority of the season, and Andy King on top of that. They didn't really have pre-seasons. You know, they've had interrupted seasons to get that work in over the past. So we was working before, like in lockdown. You know, lads were given individual programs. So to get that run at a now 9-game mini season, if you like, I think you're going to see a big improvement.
Yeah, and we've had the 3 friendlies as well. You could sense in those games that the intensity levels had risen, haven't they? As a player, how important is it to play those games before the restart? Obviously, we saw last night, Man City didn't play any games. Other teams have done. How does that work from a player's perspective?
Yeah, I'll be honest, that watching Man City last night, I'm not sure that they haven't played no games. I think they've had a few sneaky games in there, because out of the 4 teams that played last night, they look phenomenal. They by far look the sharpest. Personally, I can only speak from experience. It's so important to have that run of games. I'm someone who needs 4, 5, 6 games to get going, and I'm sure a lot of the lads would sort of echo that as well. They've all gone really well. I believe the manager's been really happy with the performances, and I think almost when the manager come in, we was almost chasing our tail a little bit. Yeah. We was looking for results which we needed, and we never really got to nail our performances down. I think we got to a point where we went 7 or 8 games unbeaten, and we was getting there. We took a few injuries, and then the manager made some big calls that were needed to be made in the squad, and the whole dynamic changed. And again, we was looking for results. But I feel in this next 9 games, that for me, for a long-term goal and a long-term vision, performances definitely outweigh results. And if we can get the performances right, I think the results will follow, and we should be fine.
Yeah, and obviously Wigan up first. Steve, in the press conference yesterday, everyone was mentioning, is this a 6-point game? Is this a 6-point game? Do you really think that it is a 6-point game?
I mean, when you're only 1 point apart in the table, I think it's hard to say that it's not, particularly given the sort of the good run of form that Wigan were on. I think probably realistically, though, I've done a lot of had a sort of quite a thorough look at the bottom of that table. I think probably realistically, there's probably only going to be 1 relegation spot up for grabs, because I think probably at least 2 of the current bottom 3 aren't looking too great at the moment. So I think it's just about outperforming the teams that are around you. So it would be massive to get the 3 points against Wigan, because I think, Danny Cowley has said sort of quite consistently that 50 points is the target. It's not like there aren't other opportunities to pick up 8 points if they don't get a result on Saturday. But it would be a really, really good start, really positive start, and has the added bonus of ensuring that at least one of your other relegation rivals hasn't won, which is, kind of the definition of a 6-pointer, isn't it?
Yeah. Tommy, as a player, do you see games as 6-pointers? Are they just important games or just another game?
You try to say they're just another game, don't you? And you sort of you try and make that perception. But listen, you can't get away from the fact that it's a big, big game. The thing is, you just don't know how teams are going to come back. You just don't know what effect an empty stadium is going to have. You don't know what effect players that are coming out of contract or on loan, how they're going to be mentally. You don't know how a player who may think they're getting a move is going to be mentally. But just reading sort of between the lines and following a few stories, I think our group is in a very good place mentally. I think we all know where we stand. We all know what we're striving for. I see a lot of disconnect in other groups. But for us, I think we've become stronger in this period. I think it's brought us together. And hopefully we'll see that in a positive result on Saturday.
The company name is Manrichem. We are process engineering and design contractors. We are the hidden glue that makes the entire world work. Innovation is an interesting subject. What we do is help people conceptualize their ideas. What we always say is that if somebody comes through our door with an idea, that we can normally find a way of helping them. Taking people's ideas and making it a reality is what we do.
And obviously it is an important game, the first one obviously against Wigan for the restart. Steve, what do you think about having an important game to start off with straight away? Like Tommy said, there's so many variables and things that will be different going into this game. Do you think it's a benefit to have your first game, obviously, in the empty stadium that's behind me?
I mean, I think time will tell. Honestly, it's really difficult to say, and I feel in good company because they asked Gary Neville this question on one of the Premier League games, and he said he didn't know either. as Tommy says, there's so many variables at play for every team, and obviously the feeling around Huddersfield is very positive. That came across in Danny Cowley's press conference as well. I think it could easily, well, not easily, hopefully not easily, but there is the potential for a blow to that positivity. So getting off on the right foot, I think will be important, and setting down a marker for the remaining 8 games after that.
And Tommy, obviously you've been doing some work whilst you were injured, with the analysts as well. What do you expect from Wigan?
If anything, the one thing you probably say is that the break didn't come at a good time for them. That they're on a brilliant run of form, and they probably wanted to carry on going. Again, trying to get hold of their friendly games is going to be a bit more difficult. trying to see who's going to be fit, who's not going to be fit. It's going to be difficult. So it's almost like the start of a season. And I think you can sometimes worry about the opposition a little bit too much, but witnessing firsthand the work that we've done, we should be in a good place to give anyone in the league a good game at the moment. So just really excited to see that work hopefully come off on Saturday and turn that into a positive result.
And as a player, obviously, like we've discussed, there's so many different things that they have to adapt to. From your opinion, how do you think it will change things on the pitch?
Yeah, I mean, it was really good to have a look at it last night. I thought the crowd noise was actually a positive. I think it helped build some sort of atmosphere. But definitely there's a massive onus on creating an atmosphere in the dressing room and creating your own atmosphere and your own motivation out on a pitch. The leaders of the group are going to be so big and so important in this period. You've obviously been there pre-season games when there's empty stadiums. We have one this season against Coventry, and it is different. There's no denying that. So that's where I'm saying the internal motivation and the hunger and the desire and what we're fighting for has to be so clear. I think it has been made very, very clear by the manager. There's going to be a huge onus on the leaders and the spine of the group to keep everyone motivated around it. It's hard to, sometimes over this period you can get sucked into a bit of a false sense of security as well. We're not safe. We're only 3 points above the relegation zone. And we need to get away from that as soon as possible.
Feel the power.
Steve, do you think playing without a crowd could benefit some players? They've obviously not got the pressure of 20,000 people watching them. They can go out, especially the younger lads.
Potentially. I mean, you would hope that the players would be able to cope with that pressure, because it's part and parcel of the game. I think, as Tommy says, it'll be up to the leaders on the pitch, particularly the more experienced players, the likes of Danny Simpson and Fraser Campbell and Jonathan Hogg, to raise the game of those players and get the energy going, because we saw, I watched the Sheffield United Aston Villa game, and the energy levels in that game, it was like watching a pre-season friendly, and you just felt like if either team had come out and given themselves that bit more of a lift, then that game might have been there for the taking for them. So I think going with, energy is always a word that Danny Cowley uses, and intensity and aggression. If they can get those things right, then there will be teams in this division that will struggle with playing in the empty stadium for exactly those reasons.
Do you think that's the biggest thing, Tommy? The energy driving that intensity? And he's, like we alluded to earlier, all he's been speaking about is aggression, positive aggression.
Yeah, definitely so. And sometimes, well, a lot of the time, the crowd and the fans and the atmosphere can give you that little bit of edge that you might be lacking from time to time, whether it be a little bit low on energy or a little bit of fatigue. They're the ones that can give you that lift. So as I say, it's just very important that the leaders of the group are the ones doing that and driving that. I think it's very easy to follow when you've got a leader like the manager and Nicky, who are so energetic and passionate about what we're doing. It's very easy to follow that lead. But it's like Steve said there, watching that Aston Villa and Sheffield United game last night, for me, the water breaks didn't really help. It kept killing the tempo of the game, and the game kept swinging every time you had a break. So it's even little moments like that that are going to be key in the running. And it's adapting and it's finding a way. This is normal at the moment, and this is what we've got to deal with. Will it give a platform for a youngster to come in and do well? Maybe so. There's been a lot of talk about how technical players are flourishing a little bit under this way as well. Again, maybe so in this division as well. It's such a sort of high tempo league and always battling and always grinding. Maybe it might just slow down a little bit and become a bit more important and a bit more onus on the technical players, the likes of Alex Pritchard and Emile Smith-Rowe. We might see them flop. We just don't know. and just really looking forward to what effects it's going to have, and looking forward to seeing some action now.
And I can't imagine.
I enjoyed Danny Cowley in the press conference yesterday. Sorry, I
Carry on,
enjoyed Danny
Steve, carry
Cowley
on.
in the press conference yesterday, saying that having managed Concord Rangers, he's used to play. There were 57 people there, which is about as many as are going to be in the ground on Saturday. So he says he's well used to playing in front of no crowd and using that as an opportunity to get messages across the players. So yeah, interesting I'm sure we'll be hearing plenty of Danny and Nicky from the touchlines when we're watching the game on Saturday.
Tommy, just finally, obviously you mentioned young lads just then. If they could come out and flourish, obviously with an empty stadium, how do you think our young lads will fare? Because obviously you've had first-hand experience of them, training with them at Canalside, and a lot of them have been with the group, obviously, during this period as well.
Yeah, no, they've all done very well. They've all come back really fit. They've given themselves a chance to be in the frame. Obviously, we've seen youngsters like Jaden Brown and Lewis O'Brien burst onto the scene this year. So it'd be nice if we could sort of see another couple come through in this period. The likes of Didi, who's been with us for a long time now. Romani, I'm not sure if he's available or not, but he's obviously been out on loan and done well. Jaden coming back to full fitness. Raquel Pike, Matt Daly. We've got a lot of youngsters at the football club that have got a lot of promise. Until you test the waters with them, until they get that chance, you never know how they're going to be. I've seen so many young footballers produce the goods in training and produce the goods in the under-23s, but it is a huge step up. I do think that there being no crowds and being a bit more of a relaxed atmosphere almost will help them players, because I'm sure a lot of them have played in empty stadiums and played a lot of their games under circumstances like this. But again, hopefully we can get our points on the board really early. It will give the manager an opportunity to have a proper look at these youngsters in competitive games.
And just finally, how much are you both looking forward to football being back in the Sky Bet Championship? Tommy, do you want to go first?
Yeah, no, I was craving just watching a bit of football last night. I sat down and watched both games. Just really, I've always thought that the right conclusion to the season was to try and play the games. I think we had to get this out of the way to start the next one. I think the Premier League especially have done an amazing job to get it going. The EFL have obviously followed suit. So it's amazing that people are sacrificing a little bit. It's been a real tough time for a lot of people. Obviously, people have lost family members and friends, and almost as a duty to society, I think football needed to get going to give everybody just a little bit of a lift and something to watch. So really looking forward to it. Yeah, definitely.
Steve?
Yeah, very much echo all of that. I mean, people will know I had sort of concerns about whether it was the right time and that we don't rush back too soon. But I have to say that now that it's here, I'm really glad it is. It's much nicer working as a football writer when you've got actual football to write about, put it that way. So, but we're also obviously fans as well. We're journalists are basically just fans with pencils. So, on that front as well, it's great to have some games to watch. So,
yeah, absolutely. Guys, thank you for joining us. Huddersfield Town fans, stay safe, and thank you very much for watching.